They're researchers, innovators, and entrepreneurs. As part of the EURAXESS Services Network and EURAXESS Worldwide webinar series, we are presenting to you today a topic which is part of a bigger umbrella of topics focusing on how to do a postdoc in Europe. Today, we are going to talk about the Netherlands. Our speaker and expert on the topic today is Tavia Evans. I would like to give her a very warm welcome and introduce her briefly. Dr. Evans was born in South Wales, UK, and studied psychology at Cardiff University with an internship year at the Social, Genetic and Developmental Psychiatry Centre, King's College, London. Following this, she was accepted to work towards a PhD in clinical neuroscience at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience at King's College, London. During her PhD, she spent time at Erasmus MC, Rotterdam, working on the Rotterdam study data and additionally undertaking a master's degree in clinical epidemiology alongside her PhD. Following her PhD graduation in 2019, Tavia stayed in Rotterdam to work at Erasmus MC within the epidemiology department as a postdoc before taking a joint appointment within departments of clinical genetics and radiology. Aside from this, she works together with multidisciplinary colleagues and within other large consortia on projects relating to imaging genetics, fluid biomarker genetics, and epidemiology. Dr. Evans, thank you very much for being here with us today and sharing your presentation. Now I will give you the floor.
Thank you very much. So as mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about how to do a postdoc in the Netherlands. And I am representing PostdocNL, which I will briefly introduce also. So briefly the agenda. So as I mentioned, I'll briefly introduce PostdocNL and also introduce the Netherlands. Go on to talk about the Dutch university system and a typical postdoc in the Netherlands. Then I'll talk about where to find these positions, the funding opportunities, and the support that you'll be able to find here. And then very briefly, I'll talk about what you can do after. So I'm within a group of 8 individuals who work within the PostdocNL board. And our mission is to improve the position and career opportunities for postdocs within academic institutes and knowledge economy within the Netherlands. And we really work towards striving for more support for career development within and outside academia, finding a solution for contract issues such as the short-term problems that we have sometimes, and also being a clear voice for postdocs at an institutional but also at a national level. And we contribute mainly through a couple of different prongs, and these are local networks, so we connect initiatives at local institutes to really collect and spread good practices. Also, we lobby at a national level, working towards policy changes, addressing money issues, developing national postdoc policies. And then we also work through public relations, both connecting with postdocs through online platforms and also formulating opinion pieces for the media to help people help postdocs. And then lastly, we also have some legal help and form an intermediate between postdocs and unions. So you're thinking about doing a postdoc. Now, postdocs are scientifically the most productive group within the knowledge institutions, and they're capable of all-round knowledge workers. And we're considered as part of a group of early career researchers. And there are many, many routes that you can take, and postdocs only one of them. So if you're thinking about doing one, the Netherlands is not a bad place to do it. This year, in 2021, Netherlands was ranked number 5 on the World Happiness Report. And the OECD Better Life Index rated the Netherlands as one of the places having the best work-life balance. It's very well connected, both nationally with an extremely efficient wind-powered train network, and also within Europe with direct trains to all the neighbouring countries as well as France and the UK, and also with an extremely busy, 3rd busiest in Europe airport, Schiphol. Additionally, it's one of the best non-native English-speaking countries in the world, and English is also the working language of many universities and research institutions. And while many expats choose not to learn any Dutch or any Dutch beyond the basic level of Dutch, it will help you in your daily life and especially within integration, but it's really not a necessity. And furthermore, despite having no mountains and being a third of it being under the water level, the Netherlands does have beautiful nature, and it has a variety of arts and culture institutes and opportunities. It makes it a very, very colourful and diverse country. So if you're planning on bringing family to the Netherlands, this is also a reasonably good aspect for the country. And within the funding institutes, most Dutch funding takes into account having a family, and eligibility is extended in light of this. It's also not unusual or frowned upon to reduce your working hours to something like 0.6, 0.8 when you have young children. Furthermore, raising children here, it's rated as having some of the happiest children in Europe, which is always good. And then furthermore, if you're bringing a spouse or a partner or something, there's, as I mentioned, a large international English-speaking economy here and a very large expat workforce. Many international companies are based here, and they do not require a level of Dutch necessarily to work within these companies. So if you're coming to the Netherlands, for EU-based citizens, you don't need to have a visa, of course, but you do need to register at the local municipality within 4 months. This will get you a citizen service number as well to open such things as bank account, for your job, and also for things like health insurance. For non-EU individuals, there are research-specific visas that you can come into the country on, and your institution will apply for your residence permit and your entry permit if required. So there's a lot of aid here and a lot of research-specific initiatives to bring in researchers from international areas. And then furthermore, if you want to settle in the Netherlands, this takes 5 years of constant residency. And you also need to integrate within the culture. So you do need to have an intermediate level of the Dutch language and take kind of Dutch Integration Society tests. So the Dutch university and research structure consists of 14 major universities within the Netherlands. We're not a very big country, but we do have some very world-renowned universities. There's additional 7 university colleges affiliated with these universities and 8 university medical centres. Aside from this, there are also government-funded research institutes, and these are mostly under the umbrella of 2 organisations, the Netherlands Organisation for Scientific Research, NWO, whom I will talk a lot about within this PowerPoint, but also the Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences. So as I mentioned, the Netherlands Organisation for Scientific Research, NWO, is really integrated within the Dutch government. It's overseen by the Dutch Minister of Education, Culture and Science and a supervisory board. And then the general structure, aside from the institutes, is split up into 4 overarching areas. And these are sciences, which includes earth sciences, such as astronomy, chemistry, computer sciences, physics, maths. Also kind of applied and engineering sciences. And then you have social sciences and humanities, and then health research and development. And these will also come back within certain funding initiatives that they have. There's overarching funding initiatives, but also theme specific as well. So a typical postdoc in the Netherlands will, like postdocs everywhere else, require a doctoral degree in a related academic field. Additionally, here we do require English fluency. However, as I mentioned, a level of Dutch is not a requirement. They usually last their contracts between 1 to 4 years. These are all fixed term contracts in the Netherlands. And additionally, beyond this, the Netherlands has a rule where you can only have 3 fixed term contracts spanning no more than 4 years in total before an employer has to give you a permanent contract. And this is really to help the workforce rather than being abused over temporary contracts. However, this sometimes does cause problems in such a field as ours within postdocs, who kind of rely on multiple temporary contracts. And as you can see in the graph to my right, the other research staff here, which includes postdocs, is the second largest group for fixed term contracts after PhD candidates, which is understandable. So this again, for some of the grant funding institutions, they require a letter of support, which will that will say that your institution will promise to employ you as a permanent contract, and this can sometimes cause some problems. So if you ever do try and apply for funding with an institution, be upfront with this necessity and make sure you agree to this, that the institution agrees to this before writing a very long grant. Furthermore, the scale for employment is set for a collective labor agreement, and this scale goes from, I think, even more than 2,800 up to 5,100. And this isn't negotiable as a normal salary is, but it's really negotiable along the scale that you fit. And this is based on your field, your experience, and your kind of time that you've already spent within a similar position. On top of this, we have 8.3% holiday pay and an 8% end-of-year bonus. So this kind of equates to around 14 months of pay. Additionally, for foreign academics coming in, there is the possible eligibility for the 30% tax scheme. And this is if you're coming into the Netherlands having not worked here before. And this means that the first 30% of your salary is non-taxed, which is great. So then most postdocs in the Netherlands will also require you to teach and or supervise students to some degree. So just make sure you're aware of that before going into a position and your expectations in that. So in regards to the postdoctoral researchers in the Netherlands, there is a reasonably high percentage of non-Dutch nationality postdocs, around 54%. This was done in a survey in 2019 of around 700 individuals. And the average age of these individuals was 34 years. And the postdoctoral group who come in other research staff, we were the most had the most non-Dutch nationality after the PhD candidate group. And as you can see in the graph here as well, that trend is increasing in all academic staff groups, very, very slowly in full professor. And as you can see, the PhD candidates have the largest non-Dutch nationality percentages, and it goes down the further you go up the academic ladder. Furthermore, the average postdoc duration in the Netherlands is around 31 months. And just to give you an insight into kind of the additional structure within the Netherlands, only about 60% participated in additional training focused on academia within their postdoc. So that's kind of additional courses on grant writing, etc. However, we do hope that this will increase due to more accessibility, more opportunities, and more visibility of these courses. So where do you find these positions? As has always been, word of mouth is a really good instrument within the field. And this is even more so now we're seeing a larger presence of academia and research on social networks such as Twitter and LinkedIn. So whether you're looking for a job now or whether you're just starting your PhD, I would severely recommend you building up your networks within your area, within your field on such platforms as Twitter and LinkedIn, because it can be very beneficial down the line. Not only for jobs, but also staying up to date in research, making these connections, possible future collaborations, etc. Of course, EURAXESS is a great platform to also find more information in general, but also positions. There's also academic transfer for jobs within the EU, and then of course other online sites such as jobs.ac.uk, Nature Careers. There's so many different opportunity platforms out there. Whilst it can get overwhelming, if you look hard enough, there is opportunities. And then the alternative route is to look at the funding opportunities that are available and reach out directly to labs to apply together to these opportunities. Obviously, this is a little less certain, and there needs to be a lot of preparation and time, as many grant funding rounds can take an entire year from submission to award. So then you cannot put all your eggs in this one basket. So in lieu of that, we talk about funding within the Netherlands. So the funding in the Netherlands is kind of split up into 3 flows. And flow 1 and 2 comes directly from the Dutch government through the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. First flow will go directly to universities, and this will fund things not only like researchers, but also lab space, etc. And then the second flow is through the NWO, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And this is really personal grants. And And then flow 3 is through external funding. And this comes as things through non-profit charities, European Union, industry placements, or other government institutions. And flow 2 and 3 are usually personal grants. And these will often cover between 1 to 3 years of your salary. But due to the personal nature of these, you're also often allowed to move between institutions with and take this grant with you. Some of which you are even allowed to move outside of the Netherlands, depending on certain kind of grant characteristics and rules. And these grants are generally quite large, as I mentioned, and they can be time consuming to write. However, once you have one of these grants, you're usually secure for a year or up to 3. And one really provides you with the momentum to get future grants as well. So as I mentioned, the two main research institutions beyond universities are the NWO and the KNAW. So the NWO is the largest, I would say, within the Netherlands, and this is really curiosity-driven or basic research. And they gear towards finding solutions for social, economic, and cultural issues. And they offer 4 grant types, and that's individual grants, programmatic grants, grants for cooperation and exchange, and also investments in big facilities. The KNAW is research funds geared towards more young researchers in particular, and these also cover things such as travel, research, fellowships, awards, and project-specific funding. And they also have a focus on knowledge sharing, so kind of cooperation, collaboration, and training young researchers. So I'll focus on the NWO for now, and some specific funds that are open for postdocs. So we have the Rubicon, which is less than 1 year post-PhD, and this is to gain research at experience at a research institution abroad. So this is usually for individuals already within the Netherlands to go outside of the Netherlands. However, there are some specific topics that could be done within the Netherlands, and this grant covers 1 to 2 years of funding. And then the main grant within the Netherlands is the Talent Scheme. Now, this is highly competitive, and this goes really from early career researcher up to group PIs and very senior scientific professors. There's 3 groups of this, and this is the VAMI, the VD, and the VICI, depending on your career stage. So for postdocs, you will apply to the VAMI. This covers 3 years worth of salary and some project costs, and it's really a personal grant, so you cannot hire other individuals on this grant money for yourself. You can only apply within 3 years post of your PhD being awarded. However, within these 3 years, you only have 2 opportunities to apply. So most individuals will do it within their 2nd and 3rd year after they've done 1 year of postdoc or similar research to build up their CV. And this is also usually split up within the 4 themes, as I mentioned earlier, within the NWO. So they're really grouped and have kind of very similar criteria and marking policy. However, they will go directly to these themes. So then the other granting funding here is the free competition. And this really isn't linked to a particular theme, but they will be they'll come up as they are released. However, there's no kind of direct deadline for when they will be, like the VAMI is very periodical. And these are also aimed to fund projects and salaries. So then the 3rd prong, as I mentioned, is external funding. And 2 of the main external funding routes within the Netherlands and Europe are the ECR grants and the Marie Curie actions. So the ECR grants are individual grants that are high risk, high gain. These are also more focused on early career researchers, however, more senior postdoc level. So this is 2 to 7 years after your PhD, and you can apply for up to 1.5 million. And this is really to encourage and kind of set up postdocs to begin their own lab and their own research line. So it covers research costs of you as the PI, but also funding for other PhD and postdocs that you can hire. So this is a really good grant if you want to come into the Netherlands, maybe at a bit of a later stage after doing your first postdoc, to really set up base here. And then the other is the Marie Curie Action, and this is a 2-year funding focused on research mobility. So this is really aimed at individuals who have not spent time in the country that they're applying for. So you can't have spent more than, I think, 6 months in the last 12 living within the Netherlands to apply for a research coach within the Netherlands. And Marie Curie, you can also go between 1 or 2 routes. Every year there are institutions that post positions that they will then find candidates to jointly apply for Marie Curie for. Or of course, you can also directly approach institutions, PIs, groups to ask if they would be willing to host you for 2 years, and then you can jointly apply for funding. So then on to kind of the last main action that I want to talk about for within the Netherlands is support. So moving to a foreign country, as I know, can be very daunting. Especially, I didn't go very far from the UK, but I know individuals who have come from a very, very long way away. And obviously, in light of the recent global events, it can feel even more daunting and more cut off. So there are multiple elements that have been set up to give you some support here. And this is through institutional internal support, such as local postdoc groups or international offices, but also external national level support, such as us at PostdocNL, also unions and the expat community. So the internal institutional support consists of, as I mentioned, the local postdoc groups, and these are in most institutions, as we know, and those who don't have them, we are gunning to try and help set up these groups. This is really for any conflict management, like dissemination of opportunities, generally building a network of peers for support opportunities, just general discussions, also grant support and personal and professional development. I know some postdoc groups who will put on courses such as grant writing or networking or presence on social media, and if they don't put them on themselves, they will disseminate the opportunities within their networks to really try and get postdocs involved in these. And then there's also international offices. These are at every institute, of course, and they will be your first point of contact when you begin your work, even before you begin your work, helping you set up the visas and permits, advising you on what insurances you need, such as you need health insurance within the Netherlands, and also kind of just general orientation for your job, but also the city in which you're moving to. Then the external national level support, it consists of unions. They kind of give you information on the collective labor agreement, they can support you in legal aid, and there's multiple unions that you can join. Some of them are specifically for universities, however, not medical university health centres. However, if you want to join a union, more than welcome to reach out to us and we can give you your options or put you in contact with the union reps. There's also the expat community. As I mentioned, there's a really diverse expat community here. And a lot of individuals who have been through some of the experiences that you might be going through if you move from abroad. So there's 2 main websites, such as I Am Expat and expat.nl, and they really give information on everything, from living to working to studying, and just some interesting facts about shocking or unso-shocking things when you move to the Netherlands. And then furthermore, of course, EURAXESS, Researchers in Motion. There's also an app, Welcome to NL Research, and this helps international researchers specifically and gives you information on Dutch immigration and residency procedures. There's also fact cards, and this is all about the career in academia, research and science, specifically here in the Netherlands. And then, of course, there is us. We really want to serve as an advocate for postdocs and help wherever is needed. So we're always on hand to be reached out to and to point in the right direction if we don't have answers ourselves. And then lastly, of course, after the postdoc. So around 20% of postdocs in the Netherlands are appointed to professorship positions after holding a series of temporary postdoc positions. And I think this is actually much larger than in other countries or the worldwide numbers. And as I mentioned, there's funding such as the NWO talent scheme. So beyond the VENI, there's the VD, which is really the next step up for creating your own lab. And there's also the ERC starting grant, really focused on developing independent research lines and becoming the PI of your own group. And then, of course, there's other routes that postdocs continue into within non-university research or just careers out of science. And as I mentioned, the Netherlands has a very vast expat community and a lot of international companies that are stationed here. So even if you don't want to leave the Netherlands, there are still plenty of opportunities for you as a scientific researcher, or even if you want to go away from that, you have a lot of skills that can be applicable to a wide range of industry positions here. So I'd just like to leave you with that, and hope I've given you enough information or pointed you in the right direction if you have any more questions regarding doing a postdoc in the Netherlands. And I've been here for nearly 4 years in my postdoc, so they're doing something right. Thank you.